Hello, my name is Raghu, the CEO of IDTechEx, and I'm going to give you some findings of our research into the RFID market, giving you a look at where we are in 2015 and our outlook of RFID through to 2020. This is all based on new research we have done for this report, RFID Forecasts, Plays and Opportunities 2016 to 2026. As a company, we at IDTechEx have been looking at RFID for over 15 years, tracking suppliers, and we conduct this research by interviewing suppliers throughout the whole supply chain and forming together a picture as to what's going on, what are the areas of opportunities, and what is the market size. So to give you an idea of how big RFID is in terms of numbers of tags being sold, to the beginning of 2015, the total number of RFID tags sold has been 35 billion. Of those, 1 billion are what we call active or real-time locating system tags, and these are devices which have a power source and they can therefore have bigger range or other functionalities such as a sensor. The main number, though, has been for passive tags. These are devices without a power source and therefore they're coming at lower price points. And just in the last year, in 2014, 7.6 billion of the 35 billion alone was sold. So we're really at the point after many years of very rapid adoption. In this slide, we look at some of the progress with one particular frequency, which is UHF RFID, also known as rain RFID, and how that's doing in different segments. This is the fastest growing of the different RFID technologies by numbers of tags, and it's currently dominated in terms of application by its use in tagging retail apparel and footwear. This is so they can track stock at the retail store, and so they know whether or not the stock is out of item off the shelf, and they can replenish it rather than lose a sale. The payback is incredibly strong because we're talking sub 10 US cent tags versus items of clothing which are much more expensive, and retailers have reported to us seeing sales uplift of 5 to 20%. So this has been rolled out in a cookie cutter approach, and in 2015 about 80% of the tags being used is for this application. But over the next few years, we're seeing other applications also growing in many different markets, including things like asset management, which is everything from tagging laptops through to tagging containers in supply chains. If we zoom out, though, and look at the total RFID market, we find that in 2015, that market is worth just over $10 billion, and that is up from $9.5 billion the year before in 2014. Of that market value, about just over $3 billion is just spent on the value of passive tags alone. And then about $2 billion for the RFID readers or interrogators, and the rest for software and services, and in addition, just over $1 billion for active RFID. So this is really, truly a sizable market today. And it's also growing in a steady and very robust and stable way over the next few years by northwards of $500 million each year as more and more organizations adopt the stable, high performance and relatively low cost technology. However, in a $10 billion market, there's still lots to play for because there's only a small handful of companies which have sales of more than $100 million. And these are shown at the top here in yellow, and these are revenues based on our best estimates, based on the research that we conduct, talking to these companies and their competitors and so on. There's still the majority of companies which are very small in terms of revenue. When I say small, I mean under $20 million of revenue. But more and more of those companies are moving into the higher levels of revenue, into the red box, and then eventually the yellow one. But the biggest company probably does about $700 million worth of sales, which is less than 10% of the entire RFID market. So a healthy spread. And that's partly because the applications of RFID is so diverse that we find companies being specialized in different sectors, vertically, as well as a few horizontal players when we look at things like IC or reader provision. So what comes next after the booming business of retail apparel? We're already seeing some retailers expand to other applications beyond clothing, such as tagging soft furnishings or sports goods. But they're also looking at other applications where you have a high mix of complex items For example, we have lots of different styles, colors, or sizes of items. That includes things like cosmetics, because these are more likely to go out of stock on the shelf because you have a smaller number of each on the shelf, and therefore you need to know when to replenish it. We're also seeing companies go back to some original ideas that was put forward with RFID about 10 years ago, which is to use the technology for better customer service. So help, for example, recommending products to consumers or give them that VIP service. And all of this at the moment is in early stage rollout if we look beyond retail apparel. And it will take still some years before this becomes really high volume, so hundreds of millions of tags per year at a retail packaging level. But it certainly will eventually achieve that and exceed the numbers into billions and potentially tens of billions of tags. Then there's the sensor and data logger market. This is already a market of hundreds of millions of dollars, but it really comprises of fairly bulky data loggers with a power source and quite often even a display, which tells companies when their products have been damaged in transit. RFID is disrupting that market because we've had a range of new ICs being launched which can work at standards such as NFC or UHF and RAIN, which allow standardized infrastructure to read these ICs which may contain sensor information. And these are being trialed by healthcare companies who want to, for example, monitor and track the temperature of items in transit to make sure they're still safe to use at the end. NFC is also gaining momentum, and that momentum is mainly around contactless payments and cards. We are seeing now many credit card companies, banks and retailers get their act together with much clearer messaging to consumers about using the technology. And as a result, the consumer adoption of contactless payments has steadily and very quickly increased. That means we're seeing more retailers buy RFID point-of-sale terminals, and they're also appearing in other places, such as in taxis. And it's also been greatly helped by the support for this from Apple in their iPhone 6, which was launched in 2014. NFC is the largest RFID reader network, with some 600 million NFC devices being sold just in 2015 alone. So that's going to open up a large range of other opportunities. So we're even seeing allied technologies, so technologies such as printed electronics, being used to create or emulate simple NFC tags, as shown in this image here with thin film electronics, whereby from your phone you can detect whether or not the bottle's been opened. And from a consumer point of view, it gives you different messaging for each of those statuses. Other trends we've seen with RFID is the takeoff of electronic shelf edge labels. These appear in retailers, and they were initially driven in specific countries where retailers were heavily fined for having prices which were different when the consumer checks out versus what is shown on the label on the shelf edge. These can be updated straight away, and they overcome those problems, but it also allows the retailers to be more competitive. It allows them to be more competitive because at the stroke of a key, just like online retailing, they can change their pricing and therefore very quickly to demand and supply. And it's been so successful that now retailers are rolling this out just beyond the compliance point of view, but also for this extra benefit. Indeed, the largest supplier of electronic shelf edge labels now has revenues of over 100 million euros a year, so it's certainly grown into an establishing business. Other developments and trends we've seen are tag and reader providers looking to move downstream, and a number of these companies now offer a software element, which is usually cloud-based and allows them to sell to their customers a platform where they can retain their data or help their customers incorporate the data that's generated from RFID into their existing software or applicational software systems. In terms of some of the innovation around tag prices, we've seen the cost of the IC chip fall over the last few years by an average of 8 to 10% per IC, and that's mainly been due to volume growth. But it couldn't continue at that rate for too long, and so we now see the prices have become more stabilized at that level. There's a lot of innovation in other parts of the chip attach in addition to the IC, and that includes the chip attach, where companies are trying to speed up placement of ICs and also handle smaller ICs, both of which result in lower prices for the tags because you can do more with the same equipment. Companies along a similar vein are also looking to improve the adhesive, so chip to substrate connection in terms of its speed to cure. And there's also a lot of progress exploring different technologies to put down the metal antenna on different types of substrate materials. So that was a very brief overview as to highlights as to what's going on in the RFID world in 2015. By 2020, we expect the RFID market to be worth just over $13 billion, and that's up from $10 billion this year. So that's about a 30% increase over that period of time. And as I mentioned, it's very stable and profitable growth for more and more suppliers involved. If you'd like the full information, we dissect this industry incredibly well in this very detailed report with over 100 tables, figures on almost all the main aspects of RFID that you would seek, and it's contained in this report, and you can see more details at idtechex.com/RFID. Thank you for listening, and please do feel free to take a look at our website.